6 months ago, I drove my Tesla Model 3 from Aberdeenshire to West Sussex. At a journey distance of just under 600 miles, it's one of the longest car journeys you can make in Great Britain between populated centres. I completed that journey only 20 minutes longer than what it would have taken with my diesel car. Now, the difference between 6 months ago and now is that when I bought my Tesla, there were only 43,000 Tesla Model 3s on the road. Now, as of March 2022, there are 83,000 Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys registered on the road in the United Kingdom. So it raises the question, can the superchargers cope with all those extra cars on the road? And will it adversely affect my journey time compared to 6 months ago? So we're going to get in the car and we're going to find out the answers to those questions. Okay, let's get out of here. Navigate to Abington. Okay, so it's telling me it will expect me to arrive at Abington with 18% charge. So we're at 99% charge, and it's just 2 minutes before 5 o'clock, and it's 1 degree Celsius outside. So it's time to be on our way. So we're on the A96, that's the first leg of the journey, and I'm expecting to arrive down at our destination somewhere between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so between 10 and a half and 11 hours. That's assuming the traffic's good and the supercharger queuing is also good. Battery performance isn't so good when the temperature outside is cold. It can be about 20 to 30% worse off. It is 1 week before Easter, so I'm reckoning that there probably will be increased long distance traffic. So here we are arriving in Dundee. Current energy consumption is reckoned to be just under 300 watt hours per mile. And we've got 62% battery. Estimation for arriving at Abington is 14% battery, so it's down from 18%. We have been facing cold temperatures. It's about 3 degrees outside, and we've also had some strong crosswinds. In terms of where we were in October, we got to Abington at about 23% charge. So there the temperatures were warmer. They're about 5 degrees rather than just above freezing point, and that makes all the difference. Okay, so we're on the M80 approaching the junction with the M73. So let's have a look at some statistics. Show energy graph. It doesn't like it when roads do that. Let's just put myself over here. So it's estimating 17% charge arriving at Abington. Now, the original route was suggested to go via Edinburgh. I don't know why it suggests that. That's quite a slow route. I always drive the A9 via Perth to Stirling, and then the M73 and then the M74. Let's have a look at available superchargers. Show superchargers. Okay, it doesn't get rid of this, so I have to do that. Eurocentral is the closest one. I have used that in the past. Abington has got 6 superchargers, so it's completely empty at the moment, so we will proceed to that one. So we're approaching the Hamilton junction now. What I do with my navigation is that I navigate to the Abington village, and the reason I did that is because if I navigated to the Abington supercharger, my experience is that it will try to precondition the battery well over an hour before you actually arrive there, and it has led to massively increased electricity consumption in the past. When I did that to Dundee supercharger from my house, for example, it was preconditioning the battery all the way from my house, and the result was in the wintertime a consumption of 400 watt hours per mile instead of the 290 watt hours per mile that we had today. and it was colder, of course. So what I do is I navigate to Abington Village, and then nearer the time, in this case Hamilton, then I switch my navigation to Abington Supercharger, and that should mean that we spend less time preconditioning the battery. Nice empty chargers, just what I like. Okay, let's get this thing charged up. So that's me plugged into Abington Supercharger. Nobody else parked up here. We are nice and early. It's about 8 o'clock. It took 3 hours to drive the 195 miles to get here, and we used 300 watt hours per mile of electricity. The battery charge is 14%. We're now ramping up to 100 kilowatts and greater. So I'm going to sort myself out, and then I will reconvene. My next destination is going to be Tbay Services. Now, previously I've charged up here to about 80%. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to charge up my car so that I get to Tbay Services with 15% charge. I do have the contingency of charging up at Gretna as well. One of the reasons I wanted to film this is to discuss how the provision of superchargers has changed in the 6 months since September and October. There's an awful lot more Teslas on the road, but the same cannot be said of superchargers. In Scotland, the only development that we've had since September is that there have been more superchargers added to the Edinburgh superchargers. I think it's been expanded from 8 version 2 superchargers, and now there's an additional 8 version 3 superchargers at Edinburgh. So that's good, but on the core route, the M74 and the M6, there have been no changes. And indeed, there are no changes all the way through to my final destination. And this section here from the M6 and the M74 is a bottleneck. Later on in the day, you will find Teslas queuing here. I'm not going to be sticking around here for very long. I've just been in to the services and then back out again, and I'm already up to 42% charge. I'm going to get up to about 55-60% charge before heading off again. So we are now in England. I want to talk about a new supercharger which is planned for this area. There's a service station coming up called Todd Hill South, and it's appeared on the Tesla supercharger map as a planned supercharger due to open in the third quarter of 2022. Now, I'm going to have to say, planned opening dates for superchargers have a reputation for being delayed or even postponed indefinitely. And I'm not too convinced that it is going to open terribly quickly, but it is desperately needed. We're coming up to Tbay superchargers in about just under 40 minutes, and the number of spare supercharger stalls has dropped from 7 to 1 in a very short space of time. So let's just see how my luck turns out when we draw nearer to the supercharger. So we're coming up to Tbay Services. Now, the map shows 7 spare superchargers at Tbay. However, there's a problem with the map. It doesn't auto refresh the number of spare superchargers. If you press on the button, it will tell you there's 7 stalls available, which is good. But it's only when you press on that it auto updates and that it refreshes. So it looks like we've got run of the mill today, so we'll just carry on and we'll charge up. A quick tip for northbound travellers is that you can actually use the Tbay southbound supercharger. Go into the Tbay northbound services and follow the Tesla Supercharger signs, and you will find a shortcut across to the southbound side of the Tbay Services. Right, let's get this thing charged up. The cost per kilowatt hour for superchargers now is 41 pence. That compares to grid power at home being 35 pence per kilowatt hour. Now, back in September, the cost per kilowatt hour of charging here was 34 pence. And at the beginning of 2021, it was reckoned to be about 26 pence per kilowatt hour. So I don't think Tesla's ripping you off at all. If you go to other fast chargers, such as Shell, especially Ionity, they charge far more for electricity than what Tesla does. So again, I've only just been into the services for a short length of time just to get some drink, and my next planned supercharger stop will be Hilton Park southbound, just outside of Birmingham. We've almost got enough charge to make it with 0% battery remaining. I'm going to charge up to a level where we've got 15% charge at Hilton Park. So we're at 51%. We should be getting up to 65% when I leave. And this is probably the best strategy to have. Charge up just enough to get to your next supercharger. Have one supercharger as a contingency, which in this case will be Tbay Services southbound. So if Hilton Park is looking busy, I can pop in at Tbay Services instead. So this is working out for me very well, and so far, even though there are more Teslas on the road, it's looking pretty quiet here, which I'm very pleased about. So we're coming up to Tbay Services, and there's 6 spare superchargers there, but we've got 10 spare supercharger stalls at Hilton Park South Services, so that's where we're going to end up. The predicted charge once we arrive there is 15%, and that's what it was reckoning when we were heading out from Tbay Services. The estimate did go up to 20%, but it's since crept back down again, and I think it has done that simply because of preconditioning of the battery more than anything else. Let's have a look at the energy graph. Show energy graph. You can see we were above trend for a while, but now it's dropping back down again, and I can't understand why I didn't factor that in the original prediction. But let's have a look at energy consumption. So this leg is doing 234 watt hours per mile. It was 220 watt hours per mile before preconditioning kicked in. And the improved efficiency is not just down to the temperature. I mean, the temperature is only 9 degrees. The main thing that happens down in England is that you get much less air resistance driving on motorways like this, where you've got much heavier traffic. And it's just the effect of the slipstreaming of the air. So here we are at the M6 toll junction. We're not too far away from Hilton Park Services now. We've now only got 2 stalls remaining available, and the number of stalls available did drop down rather dramatically over the course of the last 10 to 15 minutes. Well, here I am at Hilton Park Services. The superchargers here are busy, but there's always a supercharger available, I find. There's just a general coming and going of Teslas all day long. But speaking of that, it's not just going to be Teslas before too long. The Department for Transport recently announced that superchargers in the United Kingdom are going to be available for all electric cars in the weeks or months to come. Now, the thing to note is that Teslas are only a small proportion of the total number of EVs in the UK. If you look at the number of registrations for the first quarter of 2022. Teslas are certainly right at the top of the league in terms of electric car registrations, but if you look at the total sum of all the other electric cars, you'll find that Teslas are about a third of all the registrations. But anyway, I've hardly had any time to do anything other than have lunch, use the facilities, and talk to the camera. So I'm now sufficiently charged to do the remaining leg of my journey. Okay, let's get out of here. So traffic in Birmingham is suggesting that going round the M5 and the M42 is quicker than going round via the M6 and the M42. So that's what we're going to do, and then it's going to be hopefully plain sailing all the way back to West Sussex. The journey time is forecast to be 2 hours 51 minutes. So that would put us arriving at just after 3:30, so about 3:40ish, which is pretty good going. Just depends on the traffic. It's looking pretty busy on the M25 at the moment, looking at the traffic predictions here. Well, I'm now on the M25, coming up to the M3, and we're in queues. I'm reckoning there's probably about a 10 to 15 minute delay because of these queues. We've also had queues on the M5, M6 junction, which is fairly normal. But these queues where the M3 merges onto the M25, I don't remember it being like this on a Saturday before COVID. I don't know what's going on, but I've just got a feeling that it's got something to do with the M4, because every time I drive past, the M4 is closed eastbound going into London from the M25, and I think the M4 is also closed somewhere around Slough-ish. It'd be interesting to get someone's comment on these queues, because yeah, they're pretty annoying. One thing I will say is that the autopilot is fantastic in this kind of condition. I don't have to think about the foot brake. Well, I have to think about it, of course, but I don't have to use it. The autopilot just takes care of it completely for me. Fantastic. Well, here we are in Guildford. Not too far for me to travel now. We just got to get through the middle of Guildford, and then out the other side we've got about 20 minutes of driving. So that's the end of all the high-speed dual carriageways. Well, the last mile before arriving at my final destination. Okay, well, it's now the end of my journey, so let's get this thing plugged in. So all told, my strategy with charging up was a bit different to my first time round. I charged up just enough to get me to my next supercharger, and that maximizes the supercharging speed. That strategy probably only shaved 5 to 10 minutes off the journey time compared to my journey 6 months prior. It goes to show, I reckon that journey was probably only about 10 to 15 minutes longer than what I achieved with a diesel car. So is there any reason to be anxious about queuing at superchargers? I think, broadly speaking, no, but in specific areas, yes there is. The north end of the M6 and the M74 is a bottleneck. There is a new supercharger station which is going to address that particular problem, and hopefully that will provide some relief for Abington. Now, my return journey, that's going to be next week, is also going to be a bank holiday weekend. story could be completely different. I'm going to be avoiding Good Friday and Easter Monday, but in the meantime, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.